Larry Brown Jr. is a 12-year veteran of the IRS. He is now charged with involuntary manslaughter of an officer of the United States. Now, he was released on his own recognizance, and we were there outside court as he left, flanked by his attorney and family members. Take a listen. Mr. Brown, anything to say about the allegations? Anything you want to let people know?
Thank you.
Now, according to that indictment, Brown handled his gun without due caution and with reckless disregard for human life. This happened back in August at a firearm range at the Federal Correction Institution in Phoenix for what they say was standard pistol qualification and classroom training. Brown is a trained use of force instructor. When training had ended, prosecutors say Brown entered a building known as the Tower. It is a small building where instructors can observe and command the live fire trainings. The agent killed, Patrick Bauer, was also in that building, and that's when the shooting occurred. Bauer was struck once in the stomach. A 15-year veteran of the IRS, Bauer later died. Now, also in court, Bauer's wife and other family members, she objected to Brown's release through the prosecutor, saying her husband won't be going home. Now, Brown pleaded not guilty to this charge. His trial now set to begin April 2nd. If found guilty, he faces up to 8 years behind bars. Live in downtown Phoenix, Amy Cutler, Arizona's Family Investigates.